Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the SempreMilan podcast. I'm your host, Ollie Fisher, joined once again by Lorenzo.
Hello, guys. How's it going? Pleasure to be back. We were just reminiscing. It must have been about 6 months, but here we are. We're back again.
And Steph's here as well to complete the Britalian trio. I'm not even part Italian, but I'm gonna roll with it.
You are, but we'll take you in. We'll take you in.
I know a few swear words, and I like pasta, so part of the gang. Yeah, boys, It's been months since it's been us three. Steph, how are you doing?
Tanned, I was out in Croatia scouting for the next Ante Rebic, but couldn't find him, but nearly got beheaded. So maybe I did find him. Good, really good. I can't complain. Summer has been kind.
Can we have the beheading story?
I mean, it's more of a fabrication.
Right, okay, yeah.
Which is quite ironic because most stories we hear from the market is fabrications. So maybe it's a good segue to talk about transfer activity, lies and deceit. But no, I'm joking. I've just got on a tangent, but no, there is no story of no beheading unless you're watching Game of Thrones. But yeah, no, all good. Yeah, I can't complain. Pretty positive start, I think, to pre-season in performances. Obviously, I'm sure we'll touch on, but I think a little bit more from the market is definitely what's needed. But some surprising stories from youngsters as well who might be making a name for themselves, maybe in the senior side. So, which I'm sure we will talk in Liberation.
Oh, nice.
Is that good? I do know what Liberation means.
No, that'll do.
That'll do. Just shut up, Steph. All right, you do well.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I like the attempt. Of course, we are going to talk about the Real Madrid friendly, which was the second one of our USA tour. A little bit of a preview on the final one, which is tonight. We're recording this on Tuesday afternoon, UK time. We're playing Barcelona in Baltimore. Before we dive into it, though, thank you to all of our founding members over on Substack: Des Windsor McGlynn, Ali Tarin, Tito, Matt, Moritz Pullman, Joey Gawler, Kemin, MG and Mats, Luke Villano, Raul Escobar, Rajat Kaula, Fassi, Nasser, Merlin Flinker, Derek Favretto, Hevanly 13, Mike Schulz, JT Physio, and Tarek. Might be my best speed run, that. I've been inspired by the Olympic Games. You been watching any Olympics, lads? It's good, isn't it?
I watched. Oh my God, Noel Lyles, the sprinter, mainly because he's a massive Yu-Gi-Oh fan, as am I. So the fact that he's bringing it to the masses and with his blue eyes, white dragon, it was very good. But yeah, here and there.
Yeah, a little bit. Obviously, there's a bit of news about the Algerian female boxer, but a
lot of controversy.
The old XY chromosomes, eh? But yeah,
I'm not sure how far down this rabbit hole I want to go.
Yeah, let's not. A bit. A bit of not much. I mean, I would have liked to watch a bit more of the football, maybe the basketball, but I don't know. It's quite hard to get a gauge on what's on at what time. But I just enjoy watching it. Like lots of random. I like the Turkish shooter. It was quite funny.
That was very good.
Yeah,
hilarious.
That was very good. It's very cool guy.
Yeah, that's definitely the best thing to come out of the Olympics.
There's a lot of sometimes you put an event on and you think, how on earth is this in the Olympics, But then other times you'll flick it on and there's some BMX riding going on or something and they're doing front flips and you think that's incredible. And then the next event is horses dancing and they're being graded on how well they can moonwalk and stuff. Fantastic. Love it. Just flicking over a medal table here. Italy have got 9 golds, so that's not too bad. GB on 12. We need to catch up with Australia, France, and I think the Yanks are gone at this point, and China, obviously. But
they always top it, don't they?
Yeah, they do. Yeah, Chinese divers, absolutely unbelievable. Fair play to them. Let's move on to some football. You two didn't stay up for this. You two are plastic fans. I'll get that out of the way. I went to bed. I went to bed at 9 p.m. to get up at midnight. UK time for this to cover the game. Managed to do it a bit more successfully than the Man City game where I was zoning in and out in the second half. There was only 1 goal in this one, so we haven't got loads and loads to talk about. However, the same positives were there. The assist came from Matteo Liberali and the goal came from Chukwueze this time after he got 2 assists in the Man City game. I have to be honest, I know Real Madrid weren't at full strength However, the team still had enough out there, I think, to cause us some problems. This was a much better defensive performance, and I think a much better performance in terms of controlling the game. And we had the better scoring opportunities, by quite a long way as well. But yeah, I guess from a results standpoint, it can only be building confidence, right? Because people say preseason results don't matter. And I say that's true if you're playing well and losing. However, when you're playing well and winning, it can't hurt. Throwing it to whoever wants it.
Yeah, I'll jump in quick because I haven't got too many thoughts on this one. Steph, I'm sure you'll probably go into a bit more detail. But for me, I think the comment about the teams, I think is really relevant. I think if you're looking at the Man City game, I think they actually had a stronger 11 comparatively to Real Madrid in the sense that I think there were quite a few starter quality players, or at least rotation options that Pep would use, like Oscar Bob, for example. And I agree. I think attacking-wise, that game was really good. But obviously focusing on the Real Madrid game, it's just nice to see fast movements. The 1-2s between players is just so refreshing, and that's clearly something that Fonseca's driving into the players and making sure that they're implementing the ability to pass the move really quickly, triangle passing, something that we weren't doing obviously under Pioli, not keeping the ball as often. So yeah, from my perspective, it's just nice. These are big clubs, they're occasions, whether or not it's full strength or not. It's only, like you said, Ollie, only going to make the guys believe in themselves more, especially the sort of fringe players isn't the right word because I think Chukwueze deserved to be starting that half of the last season, but someone who didn't have the full confidence of Pioli, who seemingly has got really good confidence under Fonseca. So, yeah, from my perspective, just brilliant to see quick, fast, incisive passing, mainly, to be honest.
I completely agree. The style is definitely the biggest takeaway. I think, start off as we mean to go on with the new change of coach, and I think you can see a massive difference. I think what's interesting is, as much as we can say there's rotation in Real Madrid side, there's equally we're not playing the game with our best player, Rafael Leao. We're not playing the game with our new starting striker, Morata. We're not playing the game with Pulisic off the bench, but Teo Hernandez, Mike Mignon. In goal we have a youngster because Sportiello's injured now, so it's. And if you look at their side, they had Thibaut Courtois, Antonio Rudiger, Vasquez, Modric, Ceballos, Brahim Diaz, Endrick, Gula. So there's talent there. So we can't really sit here and go like we played against a bunch of kids. I think the big standout is the fact that we had a kid that played in the end. He was a standout. I think equally can sit here and go youngsters aren't really going to impress in these fixtures, but we do have one that is impressing quite a lot, which is asking a question of does he have a spot in the senior side, which we'll probably talk a bit more about. But I think just the style of football is genuinely impressing a lot of fans, considering the fact that we're leaning more towards players who didn't have so much of an impact last season. Players who weren't even here, like Salamakers. Liberali was obviously in the youth setup. Nasty who will probably be sold or go out on loan, won't be here. And then Chukwueze as well, who's making up for the lack of preseason that he didn't have last year to really embed himself into the side. And then you also have the good stories, which is Benacer, obviously starting the season with a bit of good fitness, obviously not coming off the back of a meniscus injury. Loftus-Cheek, once again, another sort of a preseason under his belt, and hopefully with a clean sheet with the likes of Chao Tomori, and Telechan as well. There's a couple of good stories there. It's good experience for these players against top sides in an environment which is forgiving, but also equally can build up a bit of confidence. And then you have the players coming back from international break or injury, where there's a bit of a question mark. I think the interesting part is with a new coach, Fonseca's clearly going into this preseason not with any sort of predeterminations of who he wants to keep or sell, and ultimately allowing them to impress him in preseason to make his judgment, which is the Salamakers argument. We know what we need, which is positions that we've invested in Pavlovic, and hopefully we'll do in a midfield position, and obviously Morata up front as well, and potentially a right back as well, and Emerson Royale. But I still think there's an argument of from the current crop who should stay and who should go, which is quite interesting because obviously then you get the whole Adley situation that he was closer to starting last season. Now he looks like he's out of favour completely. So interesting games pre-season. Good start, I'd say. If we want to combine that with the what was the other game? Man City game where we won as well. So I've been quite impressed, I have to say.
Yeah, like the Man City game, obviously there was 5 goals in it. Colombo scored a couple. Nasty got the winner. You could almost say it was sort of the two teams putting on a bit of a show and saying defense is not important at this point. Let's just try and play our way, especially for us because we're trying to embed, I guess, a different philosophy, if you want to call it that, a different style of play. This was a lot more controlled, definitely, and I think we did a good job in limiting what Real Madrid are good at, and also building on what we'd seen, what we're trying to shift from, because it couldn't be two more polar opposites, really, in the sense that last season we didn't have a single 10-plus pass move leading to a goal. And, in pre-season, we've already had a 33 pass move leading to a goal. Like, we are trying to play through the thirds and we're trying to play good football. We're trying to find Liberali or the 10s or the wingers in space and have them in good positions. And I think that can only benefit. It's pre-season, you can't get carried away. But the first 13 minutes of this game, and I appreciate you boys didn't see it, but anyone who did will know what I mean, because it was a blitz, really. We pressed very, very high, and I think Fonseca's put a lot of emphasis, on like the first 30 minutes of these games, trying to start quickly and get things before the legs start to go a bit, which happens. We're still not at 100%. But we had 3 really good chances in the first 13 minutes. One of them, 4th minute, a loose pass from Real Madrid inside the box, which came from our high press, fell to Chukwueze. Courtois saved it pretty well. 3 minutes after that, Chukwueze to Liberali, poked it through to Nasty. Again, Courtois saved with his legs. And then we went back to front. Torriani started a move. We got it to the wing, cut it back. Salamanca's was there. Goal was gaping, but a brilliant block stopped him from scoring. And it was like, yeah, there we go. First 30 minutes of the game, we've got Real Madrid 0.5, Real Madrid B, whatever you want to call them, on the ropes, and we're looking pretty good. And on the balance of play, with the chances that we missed in the second half too, there were a couple on the counter that we could have done better with. We deserved to win, and that's always positive. And further positives come from the minutes that we got to players coming off the bench. Minute 65, Pulisic, Jovic, Jimenez, Kalulu, and Musa came on. And then I think it was about 15 minutes after that, maybe a little less, Pobega, Gabia, Hugo Cuenca came on and got on the ball a fair bit, which was good to see. And Bakune came on too. So everyone's getting a run out, minutes in the legs, in a semi-competitive environment. For example, Roma are playing Barnsley in a pre-season friendly today. We're playing and beating Real Madrid. Real Madrid with some decent names in there. So I think that's not something to be sniffed at. And as was kind of alluded to, I think the main takeaways from the game were how well the younger players did. I think Liberali's been the standout of pre-season. He's gradually got into it more and more. I think this was a good kind of game for him because Real Madrid were allowing a lot of space between the lines. Nasty had that opportunity, could have easily added to his tally. It does look like he's leaving. Jimenez came on against, obviously, the team that we've signed him from. And, oh my God, he's so fast. Like, he simply has to be the fastest player in this squad. He was flying forward. He had a couple of runs that were Teo-esque, where he starts on the left and sort of snakes his way inside, and that was good to see. And then Kamada came on even, and Kamada from that Serie A debut, where he could have run through on goal, but you realise he's still like 15 years old, and even a slow centre-half can catch up to him pretty quickly. In this, he just looks to have taken a step forward athletically. Maybe he was playing against some tiring players, but he got involved. He got on the ball more. He was linking up well. And I hope he gets a few more minutes against Barca. But a good exercise. And maybe a bit of bias having been there, but I love Soldier Field as well. I love Chicago. I think it's great.
Yeah, me
great
too.
Place. It's amazing.
It's
Beautiful place down by the lake, and it was a good crowd. It was like 90% Real Madrid, but that's par for the course, and they went home unhappy. So have that. Couple of thoughts on the Barca game. It's hard trying to predict the starting 11s for these games because obviously you like to mix it up, but we do have a predicted 11 for this game. Torriani in goal, no surprise there. Back four of Calabria, Tomori, Chow, Terracciano. Again, no real surprises. Benacer, Loftus-Cheek as the double pivot. Chukwueze, Pulisic, Salamakers, and Jovic. So I guess the main thing is Leao available, but not going to start because, again, he's only joined up a few days ago. He won't be 100% or anywhere close to it. Okafor will be available as well. Loftus-Cheek being used in a double pivot again. Pulisic in that 10 position. Tomori right centre-back and Thiaw on the left. I have this feeling now that Thiaw is actually going to start maybe at least the first couple of games while Pavlovic gets fully bedded in. That seems to be what we're working towards with them swapping Tomori and Thiaw over. Any thoughts on that 11? I guess it's what we're going to get at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I'll be watching it just because of the time it's on. But from the perspective of a magnifying glass, particularly, I won't focus too much on this because we'll talk about transfers, I'm sure, after this. But will be Salamakers because he is a big talking point as to what we want to do with him. So it'd be nice to see him get a run out. See what his development's like, see how he's performing on the wing. That would be good. The other one for me will be Loftus-Cheek because I think he is much better suited as that sort of industrious box-to-box midfielder rather than the stupid physical number 10, whatever the fuck that means that Pioli was dead set on. So I'll be really keen to see his performance because I think from what I've seen, again, limited. He seems to have been played in that position by Fonseca in the last two, or had minutes in those positions. Certainly looked much better. He's had some of those marauding runs that he is capable of. And yeah, from a Salamakers perspective, I just want to see, basically, question mark. I love Salamakers. I completely understand that if a really good offer comes in, I think we should take it. But at the same time, if he has kind of taken a step forward, can be a little bit more decisive, especially if he's been played further forward, and it'd be nice to see that from him. Otherwise, I'm not sure who Barcelona will be fielding. I hope they field a bit of a stronger 11, obviously, because we will be, and we're so much further along in pre-season, so I expect them to. Just like to get another win against another big club, one of the biggest in the world, which is only going to help the confidence of the players. But yeah, for me, it's going to be a Loftus-Cheek and Salamakers magnifying glass session.
Yeah, and they're about to sign Dani Olmo, Barcelona. He won't be there in time. He won't be there. Yeah, it's a good signing that, but don't know how they still got money.
Where they get the money from?
Yeah, where is this money
from? And Barca, where's this magical 150 mil? But
money. I think it's we're running out of games for the start of the season, so I think there's an element of as much as we've seen good performances from Liberali and Toriani's being played because of necessity, because of obviously Mike's not fully back yet. I'm probably ready for full fitness, and we don't want to sort of stress anything out and get him potentially injured. So it's a good experience for a keeper as well. But the rest of the side should be as close to who we're going to be fielding in that first game against Torino, first game of the season, and really getting those players ready in a formation that will be fielding, which is good to see the commitment to the 4-2-3-1. Like I said, Loftus-Cheek, good to see him played in a position which is much more natural for his abilities. Benacer being the deeper one, Loftus-Cheek has that free reign to charge at the other midfielders, which we know he's great at. And rather than the sort of a centre attacking midfielder who picks the ball up in a higher position, has to sort of drop the shoulder, as we've seen Liberali do quite successfully. But I mean, the interesting bit here is now we finally see Pulisic in a position that a lot of fans have been asking for now, centre attacking midfield, and which probably goes to the argument of why there's a debate to keep Salamakers, because with a shift from, we've built a squad previously for a 4-3-3. We're now committing to a 4-2-3-1. We obviously need attacking players to cover those three behind the striker. We know Loftus-Cheek isn't naturally great at that position, despite Pioli putting him there consistently and him scoring 10 goals. We know it was a square peg in a round hole. We know it's a more natural position to centre midfielder. And we know Fonseca doesn't like Adley, so that probably fixes the equation, allows Loftus-Cheek to strive, and then they can battle for who starts out of Loftus-Cheek, Benacer, maybe a new centre midfielder and Reinders. And then at the cam spot, you only really have probably Pulisic as the closest to a natural cam. And, I think there's an argument to keep Salamakers because he had a very good season with Bologna. We saw him play on the left, which a lot of fans are asking for to happen before he was sent out on loan. And could we be looking at the vice Rafael Leao, someone who is the complete contrast to Leao, will do a lot of running back, will help the shape defensively. And then also equally get the best out of on the right side with Chukwueze. We can still play Pulisic on the right as well. So I think I'm quite keen to see if he does keep Leao, Okafor, Chukwueze, Pulisic, Salamakers, and maybe sign another Cam, that those are the 6 players battling for the positions behind the striker. I don't think I miss anyone out there, but there's talk about us trying to sign Samardzic from Udinese as to be the other Cam, and then those are your 6 behind the strikers, who would be at this point Morata and Jovic, but we're talking about maybe shifting Jovic and getting someone else in there. But it's good to see, that front line being as probably close to starting striker caliber that we have, and obviously then you insert Morata and then insert Leao, and that should then increase in talent. But quite excited to see what that front four does against a Barcelona side, which probably isn't back to full fitness yet, and hopefully get a lot of goals, whilst also keeping it quite tight at the back. Excited for it. Won't be watching it myself because obviously the time difference, but I'll watch the highlights and I'll probably gauge my opinion off that. But I think the key thing here is certainly how we play, the brand of football that we play, against a side that will probably be more used to keeping possession, despite it being youngsters or not, the way that Barcelona build this crop of players. So let's just see how we do, and I think that's where the press is going to be quite important.
Yeah, I think this I've got predicted starting 11 for the game. It's obviously Torriani's in goal, so he'll be out for Mignon. Terracciano will be out for Teo Hernandez once the season starts up. Hopefully, we've got another defensive midfielder to put into the double pivot. But for that Torino game, it's looking unlikely. Then you would presume Leao on the left and Morata up front. But it's basically like 7 out of 11 of what you would think the starting lineup would be going into that first game. So you do need to start to see a bit. We are going to see Morata in, and Teo and Reinders. Forgot about Reinders. He'll probably be in the double pivot as well. We're going to see them in the Silvio Berlusconi Trophy, which I think they're going to put quite a bit of importance on in terms of getting minutes for these guys that are going to be, it's going to be their only friendly, basically. So need to get into gear a little bit. I think we do need to see another good performance and ideally a positive result, but the performance aspects are key. We've got to keep being aggressive. We've got to keep pressing intelligently, but keeping that balance, being smart on the ball, seen some good movement so far. And I just, if we can make it 3 out of 3, then that's already a trophy in the bag, in my opinion. Well, and then we got the actual one, the Berlusconi Trophy, that we've got to go out there and make sure stays at San Siro as well. Should be a good one. It's in Baltimore. It's at the M&T Bank Stadium, which is where the Ravens play. I think it's like over 70,000. It's pretty big. It's an impressive stadium. AJ's at the game, so I hope for his sake that he gets to see a good game and a good result. And then straight after, I believe, the actual night of the game, straight full time, they're going to fly back overnight to Italy. Then I think have a day off and then back into training. But the season starts in just over 10 days now, so there's no time to waste. And that's the thing about these USA tours, is that they can push it quite close. When you're getting back, and Pavlovic, Teo, Mignon, Reinders have not flown out to the USA, so all of a sudden he's only got a few days to work with them until the ball starts rolling. Let's end on the right note and let's move on to some Mercato talk. I haven't spoken to you in months, lads, like literally face to face or otherwise. But before we talk about the actual rumours, I want to know what you think about the Morata and Pavlovic signings. Whether you think that they were the best target we were linked with, whether you like the deal itself, even give it a little rating if you want. I'm interested to know what you think.
I think I'll start with Morata. I think for 13 million, it is genuinely a steal. I appreciate he will be one of the higher paid players, but he's within our budget, and that's all that matters. We have those thresholds for a reason. So as long as they're not surpassed, I think it's not a problem. I think the main concern, I'll address it first, is the length of the deal. That's what most people are concerned about. He will be 32 Not 32. Sorry, 37 when he leaves Milan. Is that right? Yeah.
4 plus an option. So
yeah, call it 36, 37. However, he is in great shape. That's a fact. He's a lot younger than Giroud was when he joined, which is mad to say is a benefit, but it is. Milan has had a great history with elongating, particularly strikers' careers, so it doesn't personally bother me from a historical perspective. And Morata as a player, I think genuinely, if we wanted a link-up striker that's a bit more mobile and that offers leadership qualities, motivational qualities, and experience, I don't think there was a player better than Morata on the market to kind of fill the gaps that Giroud left. Do I love Morata? Not really, because obviously his Juve past and things like that. But he's a champion. I don't think you can deny that. I don't think he's going to score us more than 20 goals, maybe once. I don't see him becoming our out-and-out goal scorer. I think he'll be a facilitator, which is absolutely fine. And he works incredibly, incredibly hard. So, really happy about Morata. I'd give it an 8.5 out of 10. As for Pavlovic, I think the price we got Pavlovic for is a steal. Again, however, I am not going to lie. I am not a Salzburg viewer. I obviously was very happy watching the Inter highlights when he absolutely dominated Lautaro and the like, which was great. He's clearly got the raw physical attributes to be an absolute dominant force, especially in Serie A. His size, his speed, his heading and aerial ability is fantastic. There looks like there are some minor issues with his passing ability, but we've got a player like Chow, whose actual best attribute is his passing from a centre-back perspective. So I think Pavlovic, if he tidies up his passing a little bit, I think is an absolutely sensational signing, to be perfectly honest. And it's so nice to have a big fuck-off unit at the back so we stop conceding goals from corners. However, that being said, Chow's also a big fucking unit and can't head for shit. So the jury's out, but what I can see from Pavlovic, he seems a lot more competent aerially. So massively happy. I think this is a 9 out of 10 signing. So,
16
the two
goals,
signings
Pavlovic.
there you go. I didn't even know that. So the two signings we have done, as I'm sure we're going to touch on in a minute, is limited business. We need to do more. I mean, the stats came out today. I think we're like the 37th most active in terms of money spent and like the 9th in Serie A. So, and we are widely reported as being the most profitable and having the balance sheet trophy and all the rest of it. So we haven't done enough business, but the business we have done, I think, has been successful. We can't complain. That's where I'm with it.
Okay, I'm gonna go. I like Morata a lot, hell of a lot. I'm probably gonna go for like a 8.5 as a signing. I think he's much to Lorenzo's point, definitely a facilitator. I think he'll probably. I don't think he'll hit 20 goals across the season. I think just because we're trying to build a attack that's quite deep. I think I'm probably looking more towards him having sort of 20 to 25 goals and assists in combination across all competitions, just because the way he plays very sacrificially. I think he's a perfect striker to get. But when we talk about the way that we press, the question mark I have is how will that translate to Leao, who obviously still is our best player, and I'm hoping that there's a development in his playing style that allows him to embrace a bit more of that. But ultimately, I just can't see him completely transferring the way he plays football overnight to Fonseca. I think there's going to be an adaptation, but ultimately that's where Morata comes in my opinion. We saw him at the Euros. We've seen him consistently throughout his, majority of his career. The way he presses to get the ball back across the midfield, every single element of trying to get the ball back, just chasing down right backs to just knock it out for a throw on. Simplicity of those moments there is going to be where he's going to be very key to really, relieve pressure off the likes of Leao and probably the attackers who might be flagging as the game goes on, and to allow us to press and get the ball back higher up the pitch much more successfully. I think that's where we're going to see the best of Morata. And I know people want to hear about strikers scoring goals, but let's not forget that doesn't, strikers these days, there's a lot more to the game of football. And I think we saw probably Giroud try to do that, but obviously at the age of 34 to 37 years old, there's only so much running he can do. But I think he gives us, Morata, a lot of quite a few facets of a striker that we've probably been missing for a long time. So I'd be quite excited to see him in these next couple of years and see what he does to this side. He's a winner, whether you like it or not. He's won at big clubs. He's been at big clubs. Atletico, Real Madrid, Barcelona, Juventus, Chelsea. Obviously not a great spell there, but ultimately he's still big clubs. He knows the Champions League. He knows international football. And I think we'll hang our hat quite a lot on him this season. So yeah, 8.5 I'll put for Morata. I think for Pavlovic, I guess I'm the same as Lorenzo. I've seen limited bits from him just because of the league he plays in and the team he plays for. Obviously, a bit in when we played him against Salzburg in the Champions League the season before last in the group stage. I did watch a bit of him against not being in the England game against for Serbia. And I saw him in the first half really struggling with someone like Saka. Obviously, naturally, I think he played at left back in that game. Correct me if I'm wrong on that one, Ollie. I know
he played left centre back in a 3.
Left centre back.
Yeah, he came up more. He came up more against Saka at first, and then a bit more against Kane after that. But
yes, yeah. But in the second half, so left centre back, which is quite interesting because I know Fonseca loves a back 3 formation as well. So there might be something there in the season if he's not quite getting his way with this 4-2-3-1. But in that second half against Saka, the way he was aggressively going against him and driving the ball forwards in positions where you think someone of his stature would struggle. And yes, he looked a bit clunky, but he's almost unorthodoxly good at it, that he kind of, keeps a lot of midfielders on their toes because they're not quite expecting him to be competent in that position. I thought he was pretty strong there. So, look, I think he's obviously a centre-back that I think we signed to start, but I think the beauty of this pre-season so far, and I'll give Chow another chance because he didn't have a good year last season, and I am asking for him to potentially be sold. But the beauty of our defenders that we are lining up for this year is that who knows who the starters are going to be. I think Tomori's probably still the shoe-in for a starting spot. It's probably next to a Chow and a Pavlovic, but Gabia had a good season last year. Kalulu's come back into the fold. There's an argument of him playing at right back or centre back. And I think we've built a very good crop of defenders, and hopefully with new coaching they get stronger and stronger. So I think if I give Pavlovic a rating, I'll probably go for like an 8. I think I'll go for an 8, and it's an 8.5 for Morata. So I think that's my breakdown.
Yeah, obviously I gave in-depth thoughts at the time when both of them were announced, so I won't bore people with the same stuff again. But I think there's a lot of competition in the centre-back positions now, when you consider that Gabia's not even getting a mention anymore, and he was probably our most reliable performer in the second half of the season. In fact, no probably about it, he was excellent. And the Kalulu right back thing seems to have been dropped, and now he's back to sort of getting these minutes at centre back. So I think all of a sudden we've got a department with competition for places. Hopefully they're all happy to compete for those places and we don't get stung by a late sale. Even though I know if Bayern come calling, Steph will be driving Chow there himself. But yeah, I agree.
So
with
he's
everything.
proven right.
yeah, that's the only reason. But I agree with everything that you boys have said, and it is a bit of a shame that we don't get to glimpse them, in these higher profile friendlies. But they will be, as Lorenzo puts it, under the magnifying glass in that Silvio Berlusconi trophy game and beyond, because the season starts quickly after that. Again, I'm not going to bore people with what I think about these particular targets, but I am going to ask for your thoughts on them. If Samardzic, let's say Fofana / an alternative target, a new right back, which looks like being Emerson Royale, and a backup striker arrives. So that's 4 deals to do in the last, what are we at? Let's call it 4 weeks of the window, or just under. If those particular signings happen, we bolster those positions. Is that close to a perfect window? Is there other areas that we should be looking at? Should we be going for a senior deputy to Teo? Should we be, I don't even know. Should we be going for a deputy goalkeeper, given that Sportiello's impaled his hand in a hotel? What completes this Mercato now, and do you think we get it done?
I don't think that there's any such thing as a perfect window, because you can't understand the success of it until after the fact. So, I poo-poo those sort of arguments. I think it's pointless saying we've won the Mercato trophy or who's had the best transfer window. I think is literally like, who cares? I think if we get all those signings you said, Ollie, then obviously that means that every gap has been more or less filled, which is instantly a positive. So we've highlighted the areas we're weaker and we've addressed them. That's fantastic. As for the physical profiles, I for one might stand on my own here and say that I don't hate the Emerson signing at all. Don't get me wrong, I do not think he's an upgrade on Calabria necessarily. However, I don't think he's anywhere near as bad as people were saying, especially if we get him for 15, 16 million. I think that's actually genuinely really good. The most important signing for us is I think, inarguably a more defensive midfielder. That's number one. I think we can all kind of talk about the Fofana thing and say, I'm tired. We're all tired with it at this point. If we get him, great. If we don't, let's just get the alternative in, because we've missed the boat of getting them in early anyway, which would have been brilliant. But yeah, to go back to your original point, Ollie, if we get all those players, I would say it's a success because, like I said, we've addressed the gaping holes in the squad. But we know management strategy now, and my perspective when I was on here last, and generally about management strategy and who we target. This summer's the one that we can assess and actually mark up once it's been done, and maybe when we're into the sort of winter part of the season and we can have a look at the success of which signings have been embedded well. That's when we can actually have a look at this £20 million cap and the very stringent £1 million savings here or there that is our strategy is working or not. So the jury's out for me at the moment. I think the key is addressing those positions, which if we fill them is great. The profiles I'm not against at all. I think we've identified with whatever these budgets that we've set, that these are probably the best players that we can sign. Are they the Julian Alvarez's that Atletico have done, which is okay, every Milan fan wants, but spending money doesn't always equal success. So yeah, to answer your question simply, as long as those are addressed, I'm happy. And whether or not their players are successful or not will be shown on the pitch.
No, all you have to do is look at our record signings, by the way, just on the spending money to success thing. I mean, Leao's up there, but the initial fee was lower. There's the fine thing added in there. But Bonucci, Paqueta, Andre Silva, Caldara, CDK, Piontek are all in the top 10 of our most expensive ever signings, and they didn't work out. Whereas a lot of the players we've signed for between the 15, 25 mil range have been the ones that are now going to become our core. But yes, Steph, over to you.
Yeah, 100%. And you know what I feel about Caldara being the worst signing of all time, and it's fucking factual. It's more risk. I completely agree. The sweet spot is that whole 16 to 22, 24 million spot transfer fee that we've been hitting with these sort of last year on the deal contract players. Look, to Lorenzo's point, I actually, you've heard me vocally. I have no issues with us signing Emerson Real. Is he the best player going forward? No. Is he better defensively than Calabria? Yes, in my opinion. And I think we don't necessarily need a right back who's going to do a shitload of stuff up front. And he does get forward. Let's be honest. He's not I'm not talking about he just sits there at right back quite, boringly. But it's the foil to Teo Hernandez, who likes to get forward. And in a formation like a 4-2-3-1, when there's probably one less midfielder who's going to give him defensive coverage. Maybe that's the whole point of signing an Emerson Real, someone who has got good, a bit of speed about him, good legs, and someone who can do a good job defensively to complement our centre back. So I wanted to give him a chance, and I hope all Milan fans do as well if he does come. I think Fofana, I agree with Lorenzo. I'm quite fed up with the deal right now. I'd like to sort of use hopefully this week to basically say, yay or nay. We've given I think nearly 3 offers now. He's got 1 year left on his deal. If Monaco want to put us in a bidding war to get closer to the 35 million kitty that they want to get to, then they can fuck off. They can go find another buyer from West Ham. I think there's some good options that we have if we can pivot, and we pivot now. Kone is a great name from is it Mönchengladbach? There's options here, but this is really, we need to kind of do it now, or otherwise we make the end of the market quite more difficult than it has to be. I do completely agree. We need someone in that CDM spot who is more defensively minded than probably the rest of the players that we have. As we said, Reinders is coming back, Loftus-Cheek. Benacer can obviously play in that deeper role, but ultimately we need someone. We know Benacer's somewhat injury prone, and you can add a bit of legs to that midfield. I would say for the market to be perfect, outgoings is just as important as incomings. What we don't want to do is be left with a squad which is bloated, and then ultimately the value of those players decreases because they're not getting game time. And I'm looking at players like Adley, like Pobega, and potentially like a Yunus Musa, who, like I said, I don't think goes nowhere near those 4 players in the double pivot role. You have 4 players to cover 2 positions. Musa's then the 5th option. Where does he increase as a player? So I'm looking at probably 2 sales as a centre midfielder between Musa, Adley, and Pobega. And then, we're talking about potentially signing a cam in Samardzic. I think he's a good player. Did he have the best of years for Udinese last year? I don't think so. I think probably the transfer news in summer last year didn't help his cause and maybe didn't help his position at the club, and maybe sort of the way for him to evolve as a player there. I think if we do sign him, we do increase the likelihood of having 2 good players for each position. A bit of me is a sucker for a youngster, and I would not mind, honestly, which is a bit odd. Yeah, fuck.
Very odd phrasing, but move on.
It's not for Steph, guys, on the chat. He's very commonplace.
All right, let me rephrase that. I'm a sucker for seeing Primavera players succeed.
Yes.
And I would potentially like to see, if he has a good rest of the preseason, and Fonseca's saying, that Liberali is the backup to Pulisic as a cam. And I love the fact that we have this new Futuro squad, the under-23 squad, and there's opportunity for Zeroli, Camarda, Bartasaghi, and even Liberali to get opportunity there. I still think if you see talent and you see them ready to go, put them into that squad, and he will get game time. And I think he will develop whether we like it or not. I'd rather see him play, whether it's 10 to 15 games, maybe off the bench most of them, in the senior squad, than probably playing against weaker oppositions in lower leagues. And I think what I've seen so far, he looks like he's capable. And then I think you then start to insert the whole Camarda and Zeroli a bit to it as well. So I wouldn't be fussed if we don't sign a cam. That is what I'm trying to say here. So definitely a right back, definitely a CDM. And then lastly, a centre forward. I don't think starting the season with Morata and Jovic is good enough. I would like us to make an upgrade on Jovic. I would like us to sell him. I would like us to sign, if it comes to be a Tammy Abraham, then great, then so be it. I think you get the funds from the players I've mentioned that you've made sales for, to maybe help out that deal. And then I think the point of that is, this is the thing where it's Abraham or Jovic, I'm not quite sure, is that we haven't signed banker strikers who we can sit here and say they're guaranteed to be our starting striker probably beyond 2 to 3 years, because we have one in the youth team, Camarda, who we should be fucking giving the keys to in probably 2 to 3 years time. Yeah, potentially, yeah. What I don't want us to do is, and this is the thing, it's the whole now versus the future. What I don't want us to do is, if we sign a Xerxes, for example, and then sign the Morata, I'm a bit worried, where does then Camarda fit into that? And does he then look to go elsewhere? And selfishly, from an Italian national fan, I want us to start adding players who are going to play in the senior side, because God knows the Italian side needs that, with the likes of Liberali, Camarda, Zeroli, to sit here and go, there's a World Cup in 4 years' time. They could be at that World Cup. They could be, Camarda will be 20 years old. Liberali will be 21, 22 years old. The same for Zeroli. They could be like the shining light for the national team. I'd love to say that Milan are going to offer that for the senior side. So I do think, though. So back to the point, I do think that we do need the striker, but it will come at Jovic's expense. So at minimum, I expect 3 signings: CDM, right back, and a centre forward. But yeah, and then obviously the outgoings is just as important. But and maybe a little cherry on top would be, it's a hard. I don't really know I don't think we need a backup goalkeeper. I think Toriani's done quite well. I don't know how long Sportiello's out for. But maybe
months.
there's a signing. It's 3 months. Okay. Maybe there's something there. We get a cheap alternative. I think left back we're good. Jimenez, Cadachano's getting a bit of game time now. And obviously Florenzi's done his ACL, whatever it is, so it's probably going to be his last year anyway. So we're going to see him out too. So, yeah, I mean, we all knew that this summer was going to be maybe 5 or so signings maximum. So I just don't want us to upset the apple. I don't think there's too much needed. We just need to sign quality. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, I think we knew we were heading into this kind of position going into the summer, where it wasn't like last summer where we needed to rebuild various aspects of the squad. We never really expected 10 signings, and like the positions that we needed have been so obvious that I think there's just a bit of frustration that we haven't gone out and got that midfielder in already, that we are still that it did take so long, to get the centre back in, the starting centre back, to the extent that he hasn't even come on the USA tour, that we renewed Jovic, and now we might be looking to sell him before we sign another striker. I think there's just a little bit of, I won't call it anger, I think it's just apprehension, like, okay, now we need to see a few more pieces fall into place, otherwise we're going to be left with an inflated squad and a few of them in there that Fonseca does not see as being central to the plans. But it's an interesting point. Like, we've got a weird paradox at the moment where the present is very international, to put it that way. You know, there is a real potential if Emerson Royal takes that right back spot from Calabria, if he arrives, that is, that we could field a starting 11 that has no Italian players in it next season. However, you look down at Milan Futuro and into the Primavera, because there's some talents who will get promoted into that because of the Futuro team. The future is very, strong from an Italian youth perspective. Obviously, Kamada and Zaroli, Bartazaghi, I guess Torriani now will get the headlines, but there's others in there like Sia, Scotti, and Bakune, who's getting a few minutes. So those are the ones to look for coming through. But yeah, it's interesting. And I also think the management, they do like to engineer these sort of pressure situations for themselves where they have to get things done late on. I mean, look at that Jovic thing on deadline day. So we spent ages going for Taremi, and then we flipped to Rafa Mir and Patson Daka, and then it's Jovic on a free, and now we're trying to get him out the door. It's all been a bit strange, but here's hoping that we get a pretty hectic end to the Mercato. We'll finish this episode with some questions, which have, of course, been submitted by our loyal listeners. This one comes from Due Milanisti. It's a long one, so I'll just pretty much scan over this. Why are people putting so much stock on Salamakers all of a sudden? Do people forget he was benched by Macias and was very error prone during his time with us? Not saying he's terrible, but we should sell for 25 mil or anything close. I think, is it just because he's looked good in pre-season?
Yeah, I think
pretty good.
I think we've also kind of, all of us have acknowledged the fact that if that sort of figure comes in, I also think the management aren't going to think twice and they'll happily sell him. I don't think it's a case of, it's more that there's been development there. He's obviously worked really hard, has been reported on the site, so please check out SempreMilan, obviously, for all your news, that he has been impressing Fonseca big time. So you can't kind of poo-poo that. That is relevant and it's important. It's a player that is working hard and you want that. And he had a really good season last season, so it would be really stupid for us who have an asset that is up in value. Yeah, if our valuation's met, happy days, see you later. Everyone's happy. We're not going to be upset. But if he's improved, I think he's more than capable of being a squad player. I don't think for 1 second Milan fans are kind of getting on the Salamakers hype necessarily and thinking that he's going to bag 20 goals, because that's not his game. That's just my perspective.
Yeah. I think, look, if a bid came in for 25 mil, he said, I think you sell it. But I think this is what comes down to it is we haven't received that bid. Otherwise, we would have sold him for that money, because that'd be a massive capital gain. Look, I think Salamakers coming back to the squad, who had a good season for Bologna, let's not forget that, who achieved something very strong with Bologna's side as well, getting top 4 finish. Came back whilst Leao was obviously recovering from international duty and all the other sort of players not back yet. Okafor, for another prime example. We needed to play someone at the left wing and have some value out of the pre-season. And we have a new coach who's going to have those cast his own judgment on the player, which is the whole point. This is probably another chance for someone, a new pair of eyes, and probably someone who admires what Salamakers brings, his defensive abilities and the fact that he is a good technical player. He's crafty in the sort of areas behind the striker and sort of on the edges of the box. And I think he sees value there. And that's why I said to it, like, I know we can say make the sale and add that to signing a striker or something like that. But ultimately, if the bid doesn't come in, maybe Fonseca goes, he's probably one of the few players that we would have liked to sell, but can still add some quality to the first team setup compared to maybe like a Pobega or I don't know, a Musso or all the other sort of players that we've been asking for potentially to be sold as well. So yeah, I think just I know he comes with a bit of background, Salamakers, for being a bit of a meme, but I'd like to think he changed that narrative last year at Bologna. So and he's done pretty good so far pre-season. So what more could you want? You got to work for the present.
Yeah, he never disgraced himself with us, did he? Like, he always did what was asked of him. You know, when people talked about him as the balancer on that right side, and he allowed Leao to play the way he did, and for Teo and Leao to work together the way they did. Like, there was always an acknowledgement that he did at least play some kind of role in that resurgence under Pioli, like post-lockdown. But had a good season at Bologna playing on the left, and I just wonder if that's changed the perspective on him a little bit. Fonseca came out as well and said, like, he's the kind of player that I want to keep. Both attitude-based and in terms of the versatility that he offers and stuff like that. And I just wonder if, because he's going to go with the 4-2-3-1 and because he wants to have a more natural attacking midfielder rather than a box-to-box player shunted up as Pioli did, I wonder if like the things are starting to slot in the attack in a way where you could have, say, obviously Morata leading the line and Jovic / another backup, whatever happens there. On the right, Chukwueze can have the starting spot, and you could have Salamakers still on the right-hand side. Then down the middle, Pulisic and Liberali as the backup. And then on the left, Leao and Okafor as the backup. Like, there you've got two for every position. Now, you might say that's putting too much pressure on Liberali if we need him, but, you know, Pulisic can play on either wing as well, and like you can make things happen. There's versatility there. And I just wonder, with that formal switch to a 4-2-3-1 with a proper playmaker, actually maybe there is a spot for him. You know, maybe he's going to get the starts that he will want. People have rightly pointed out as well the similarities to Edin Zhigrova, who is at Lille. He was his right wing, Fonseca's right winger. Yeah, we were linked with him a couple of times. Similar sort of player. And it'll be interesting to see how he uses him, because it's kind of like, well, you've asked to keep him now, and we haven't had any 20 mil plus bids where we're going to overrule you and say, sorry, he's got to go. So now you kind of got to use him. You know, you can't leave him out. So it will be interesting to see how he fits all these attacking pieces in. But the season's long, another 50 plus game season is coming. Yeah. We're going to have injuries. So, next question. Michael Gambino asks, would you go for Federico Chiesa at the rumoured 15 million asking price?
How much?
15 million is apparently what they're getting rid of him for. They've literally stopped selling his shirts in the club shop. They've left him out of the squad entirely. It's pretty grim.
As from a selfish Italian perspective, sure. Nice. Is he the same player? No. Do we need more injury-prone players? No. Do we need wingers necessarily? No. So the only tick box for me is that he's the hype Italian player, and on his day he's great, but he has clearly declined from Euro 2020 or the year 2021. To be exact. You know, he's had 3 years where he hasn't been that good. Last season wasn't as bad as people say, and he was, you know, put out of position. But no, I just don't think there's room for him in the squad, and he'll come with a quite bloated salary, of which the likes of Roma, and who he's been heavily linked with, are happy to pay. We don't do that. So I don't see a world in which he comes. But as a Britalian, and loving Chiesa from an Italian perspective, I'd love to see him wearing the Rossoneri shirt. But no, I think this is a non-starter, personally.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I think even for him, like, why the fuck would he want to join when he's not going to get nowhere? I just don't think he goes nowhere near the starting. Yeah. I mean, Christ, he's too injury prone. I probably I don't dislike him. I just don't. He had the injuries off the back of the Euros. I think completely finished him. And I just don't. I don't personally see what he offers. I know you can sit here and go, oh, he might be better than, I don't know, Chukwueze or Okafor or Salamakers to you, but I just I'd rather trust the devil I know out of those three, and I'd rather give them a try. I just don't see and salary as well is a big issue as well. So it's a non-starter for me. If he could play maybe as a centre forward as well, there might be an argument. But he's a bit one-dimensional for me.
I was going to say, what if Juve came and said, Motta wants Salamakers back, let's do some kind of swap. Would that then create the space for him, and would we maybe look into that? And I still think the answer is probably no. Like, it'd have to be Chiesa plus cash. His value has declined that much. And this is where, from the outside looking in, by the way, you're seeing the effects of a club isolating a player and shutting them out. Because all of a sudden they can't get rid of him. And this guy was one of the hotter properties in Serie A. When he was on it and at the peak of his powers, when he was coming through at Fiorentina, when he got that big move to Juve, and he has had his moments at Juve where he's looked unplayable at times. God knows what his value was at that particular time. But now, just trying to get rid of him, we'll even take 15 million. He's had all these injuries. We're not going to call him up for any friendlies. Like, is this what we look like with certain players? That we ostracize, and we're just hurting their value by, Ballatore and Origi are not even training with the Futuro team, as Zlatan said. They're just not anywhere. They're not doing anything. And
Origi, he honestly grinds my gears. Sorry, Ollie. Origi in particular, I can't. That guy's face, man. Ballatore, I pity, but Origi, I'm like, just fuck off. Like, fuck off. And he's like, nah, I love Milan. I love my lifestyle. Fuck.
Yeah,
it's like Ballatore wants a Premier League move. Like, which Premier League? Scottish?
I'll speak less about those. I think Chiesa's that's got Roma written all over it, in my opinion.
It does. Yeah, 100%. Roma or Napoli. One of those clubs.
Maybe because of Conte, if he's still going to be there by the start of the season. But I think I'm probably leaning more towards Roma. But yeah. So no for me, dog.
My gut feeling is that Chiesa ends up back at Fiorentina. There's a bit of romance involved there, like a loan with option or something. But I just don't know. I don't know how Fiorentina fans feel about him, but I don't know.
I saw Bonaventura went to Saudi. Did you see that?
Yeah. Good on him, man.
I respect.
Enjoy yourself.
Like 4 million a year. I was like, go on, lad, man.
I'd have had him back up to Puli.
He'd sliced that league up. He'd sliced that league.
Yeah, he is. Quality.
He's actually still got. He's still got it. Like he's very good technically, and he'll
good football, bro.
He'll go to Ronaldo and be like, "I'm the captain now. This is my fucking league." You old prick.
Imagine just standing up to Ronaldo. Which club did he go to, Steph? Which one of the Saudi clubs? Do you know?
I'll plead the fifth before I say something racial.
Quickly.
Something.
It's Al Shabab. That's the team that came in for Adli. So it could have been Adli and Adli ex Bonaventura link up, but Adli says no. I love it too much. And also, did you see Adli he went out at 5 a.m. on his day off in New Jersey, traveled to New York, went to the NBA store, bought an NBA jersey for every single player in the team, and he bought a jersey with a name on the back of like someone he thought was like that.
Can we just have him as a vibes player?
For Jovic, he bought Jokic. For Reinders, he bought LeBron because he said like he's the player that everything goes through. There was a few that didn't make any sense, but go check out the article on that. Bless him, he really is just like the
he's a vibes man.
Awesome. Just like
he's so
making everybody happy. Another question here, Casey Cordray. What are Milan Futuro's expectations for their first season? The Coppa Italia Serie C is the first game that they will play. They've had mixed results in the friendlies. They battered a Serie D team yesterday 6-0, and Alesi scored 4 times. But I don't think it's quite the full squad there yet. Obviously, we've got Kamada and Zeroli out in America and stuff. I wanted to just mention this because I know that because you haven't been on in so long, won't have spoken about the project in general. But a lot of people have been like, why are we signing all these experienced players, these centre-backs that are 30, and why are we signing these forwards in their mid-20s like Mbarik Fall and stuff? It's because if we send out the Primavera into Serie C without some adjustments, they are going to get murdered. These these are big blokes. These are very big blokes they're coming up against, and some of our lads are not yet fully developed. But yeah, I guess the mission is just to stay in the league, right, and develop these guys. I think that's the easy answer to the question.
Not getting relegated is a success, as stupid as that sounds, for the first season. I mean, this is an adjustment from a governance level, you know, in terms of Milan having the club in the first instance, not just the practicalities of these players playing in, like you said, you know, an adult league with big guys around them. It's new for Milan as well. So, you know, not getting relegated mid-table for the first season, I don't think is remotely an issue. I do want to mention very quickly, because I'm glad you both mentioned this earlier, both of you, in relation to the kind of plan for our talents, because it's something I have an issue with. It's an Italian issue. It's not a talent issue, that we have a problem with how to deal with our talent. Obviously, having this team is so good for so many reasons. It's this blooding ability. It's the way of kind of getting core players over years in a sustainable model. I mean, it makes perfect sense on so many levels. But why is it, and I don't want to just say, yeah, they're not developed, because they're not, but why is it in Spain, obviously, in particular, they're famous for it, and obviously in England as well, it's becoming more and more of a thing. How come their 16 and 17-year-olds can get a run in and play? Because I don't think it's just a development issue. I would love to see, it's kind of like, you know, you play at your level. So I think for the Zeroli and Camadas, I think to a degree, you can correct me, you can kind of disagree with this. Depending on how the Milan Futuro team plays out, I can almost see them taking a step back to some degree, because you play at the level that you're kind of facing. I'd love to see the Camadas and the Zerolis and Liberalis, the really talented gems that we have, being tested at a higher level. But in the first instance, let's just see how it goes. And like you said, not getting relegated is a success. But I think Italy has a real problem with dealing with talent. And I don't think banging them in Serie C is the answer, to be perfectly honest, because if other countries can do it and other leagues can do it, why the hell can't Italy, who have a problem with their talent, have a problem with their senior team? That's a bit of a rant. It just annoys me. I'd love to see them being dealt with a bit. I think it's good, to answer your question. It's fantastic. I think it will be a success long term, 10, 15, 20 years, and a couple of decades. I think it's only going to reap benefit for us. But looking short term, players that we clearly bet on, I think long term, if they play 6 months in Serie C, I don't think that's going to be. I don't think Kamada's going to take levels playing in Serie C. That's all I'm saying. I really don't see that personally. I think he'll be more confident. I don't think he's going to take a leap, because those players are not that good either. Serie B, maybe, because, you know, that's like championship equivalent in terms of the Prem. But Serie C, yeah, that's my main issue with it. But overall, really good.
Yeah, I've got a question. We have this new team now, can we like call up from that team during the season?
Yeah.
So if we have like a striker crisis, we can go like, Kamada, we need you to play in the senior side, yeah?
Yeah, it effectively works as a 50 to 55 player pool that we have available, and we can shuttle them between. And even for squad lists, because they're this is for players that are under 23. We can shuttle them fine, because they go onto a different squad list anyway, rather than taking up the list A spots. So yeah, they can shuttle between just fine.
Okay, that's interesting. It's interesting for the whole Liberali thing I was talking about before. I think it's a good start. I think Lorenzo's made a good point as well on, them getting the shit kicked out of them in Serie C for 6 months or 12 months. Is that going to help them a lot? I don't think we're going to see a massive stint in on their developments of players in that league. I also believe it's kind of like you play up to the quality of the league, and obviously if we're not talking about a lot of quality there, what I don't want to see is those players these youngsters who have been playing, the ones that stands out have been playing quite well for the youth teams, and obviously in domestic youth leagues, but also in Europe as well. You know, they've been playing in the Champions League, representing Milan against players around the world, not just youngsters in Europe, in Serie A. They've been playing against youngsters from around the world and being able to build their confidence. What I hate to see is them go down to that league and if they do struggle, is really going to take a knock on their confidence and a knock on their abilities to touch the senior side. And that's why I kind of asked for a bit more of a. And it's good to hear that there's a bridge between them touching the senior side in the middle of the season. So if we do have an issue, and let's say we decide to build the squad out that Liberali's not there to be considered as part of the 25-man squad that we are going to build for the start of the season, that we can, if something doesn't work out for Samardzic for some reason, say if we sign him, or equally there's injuries, we can go Liberali. This is your chance now, and you can now exceed. Kind of like the G League and NBA, I guess the equivalent of that is. But I think it's a good starting point. It gives them good exposure. I'm now just quite keen to see how we transition players, and we know who these players are that we should be giving a good chance in the senior side, and how we transition them in between that series. I hate to think that we just lump them in there and hope that it's going to develop there for 2 to 3 years. We need to be able to be proactive enough to know when we see enough from them, and equally create opportunity for them to transfer their way into the senior side and give them the chance that they deserve. And then equally, Italy reaps a reward of that as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it has been stated publicly by those in charge. Obviously, Zlatan and Bonera did his press conference and stuff, that there will be total synergy between the first team and the Futuro team, even down to the Primavera, in terms of how we play, like the playing principles and even formation and style. Things like that will stay the same. So hopefully that's another thing that works in their favour. But hearing that, I'm thinking that could be fun. You know, us trying to play possession, one-touch, intricate stuff in Serie C on some of the pitches that we'll be playing on. I'm not exactly sure how well it's going to work, but, you know, we'll adapt and survive. I mean, last season, for example, Atalanta's under-23s finished 5th in their league, which isn't bad, and Juve finished 7th. So they not only stayed up comfortably, but they won more than they lost. So should we be looking to replicate that kind of thing with the top half finish? We'll see. I think the first year is going to be more difficult than people are thinking. But the end goal, as always, is getting those players to make the jump. And you could argue it's the perfect time for this project because of how many... I'm not going to call them the golden generation or anything like that, or the blue generation, I guess it would be. But I think there is a group of players that are sort of a year or two apart, who could all come through together, and it'll be like, wow, you know, but that's in an ideal world. And what we're trying to do is create better circumstances for that ideal world to happen, you know. But yeah, we'll wrap it up there, boys. We're over an hour. Done well, I think. Very enjoyable. Might extend a formal invitation for you two to replace AJ, depending on if he listens to this and reacts to that very line or not.
He's too busy meeting the players. Good.
Yeah,
living his best life.
In Baltimore. Yeah. So yeah, final preseason game tonight. Back to Italy, and then the real stuff starts very, very soon. I'm going to get you two boys involved, of course, in the preseason predictions. So that'll be coming in around about a week. We decide we are going to do it before the first game of the season rather than at the end of the transfer window. So stay tuned for that, everybody. But in the meantime, I've been your host, Ollie Fisher. You can find me on Twitter at Ollie Fisher. Lorenzo, cheers for joining.
Thank you. Very quick announcement. We are meeting next week in person. Yes, we do meet up. The watch-alongs are coming back. They are coming back. So watch this space. I know you guys enjoyed them, and Steph and I in particular are really excited to be doing those back. So just watch this space. Don't know what we talk about our schedules and stuff, but they're coming back. So, but anyway, lovely to be back on, and hope we'll be invited back again very soon.
Absolutely, Steph. Cheers for joining as well.
I've been your host, Ollie Fisher. No, it's been good. It's been good. I had Pobega on my lap for the last half an hour of it.
Yeah, we got pet wars here.
There you go. You haven't missed. Oh, you go.
No pets allowed policy.
Your true love.
Pint of Beavertown. Yeah.
It's been good catching up actually. Good time, and it's gonna be sort of geared up. I'm looking out for that the new away kick. So that's a hell of a genuine shirt.
Yes.
So I might see if I can pop over to Covent Garden at some point in the next couple of weeks and cut that. But good catching up. To another win.
Absolutely. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a good week, and we will catch you in a week's time and at the end of the week for the bonus episode. Take care, everyone.
Ancora Teo, è una meraviglia, il gol di Teo Hernandez da un'area all'altra, è una meraviglia, senti il mio cuore.